everybody, to another fantastic episode of Astral Stew. Is that better this time? Is that better with the hype?
It was something.
I'm going to sit here and still judge you, but go
I
ahead.
feel like we should do a Ghostbusters. Like, I'd be like, J-Dog, Stefan, Petar, Egon.
You done make me clutch my tourmaline. Oh.
Ray, Santosh. Hello, yeah.
It takes 3. We thought 2 was enough.
No, but speaking of being childish, I got the very first. I'm going to call it an appetizer before the stew. Okay.
Yes.
Appetizer topic before the stew.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Like poppers?
Like cheese on cicadas?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cicada poppers.
Ooh, cicada poppers.
With a side.
I think I might have done that one night in the sex dungeon.
With a cheese board with sides of Brad Pitt.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. So I've been reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland because I realized I don't think I ever actually read the book when I was a kid, and I couldn't remember. So I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and read it. So I've been reading it, and of course I love it. And but the opening thing made me wonder, was Lewis Carroll talking about Hollow Earth? Did Alice fall down that huge hole and go to Hollow Earth? Because she said she kept going for miles and miles and miles before she landed. And she, of course, had to say that it was 4,000 miles to the core of the Earth. And so I was just curious what you guys thought. And had you ever heard anything? Was Lewis Carroll ever interested in Hollow Earth theory?
So my exposure to Alice in Wonderland is the Disney cartoon, and that's about it. So
it's the
you
same.
never read them?
I never did. No.
I mean, even it doesn't matter. Well, did you see the Shelley Duvall one? Regardless,
I saw the Robert Duvall one.
Regardless, what? You know, it happens in the Disney movie. She falls down the hole chasing the rabbit, which that's where the term rabbit hole comes from.
It totally is like the way that that mushroom that used to appear, the Amanita muscaria, and how that's tied to the Santa Claus legend.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, Alice in
And so
Wonderland.
how much, I mean, she goes under there.
On your
There's
side.
a whole civilization that has been there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
There are different things that happen. There are warring factions, much like the Darrow and the Tarot.
Advanced technologies that can minimize you and maximize you.
And again, my experience being with the Disney cartoon, but my assumption is that the Disney cartoon is somewhat reflective of how the books describe things. And so in the Disney cartoon, there's giant mushrooms and things like that. And that is also carries through in other times where Hollow Earth is discussed, where everything seems to be blown out of proportion. You look at, Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth, which I've not read either. But they talk about how things are just really blown out of proportion in size and gigantic insects and things like that, almost like it kind of.
What if it's the formula for the hypersigil of Hollow Earth, and that the Mad Tea Party is a metaphor for getting yourself through the "Am I crazy" phase?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like this theory. There's a lot to be built upon.
5 seconds of reading this bitch, I was like, "This is Hollow Earth."
So, do you want to hear one
everything?
I don't know if this is as cool as I feel it is, but synchronicity. The writers group that I run, we did a group art project for COVID-19 to the library put out an ask for submissions and blackout poetry submissions and everything. And guess what the fuck was mine? Like the text that I chose, the part where Alice is falling down the hole.
Ha!
Shit you not.
Weird. That's
weird.
Weird.
Fun synchronicity.
I'm just telling you, there's so much, like, the more and more I'm reading about Wonderland itself, like, I'm like, this is Hollow Earth. I mean, she goes in there, there's sky all of a sudden, but the gravity works different in places, and, like, it's just crazy, man. Like, I don't know.
Well, and then also paralleling our ascension on the earth and everything, she had to learn how to deal with. Wouldn't you say that all the characters are multidimensional beings?
Oh God, yes. Especially the way they act, and when obviously the caterpillar has so many,
Yeah.
so many
Well,
things in.
and
But
I assume it, the Cheshire Cat and all that kind of stuff still makes an appearance eventually. It makes me think about the whole when she's in the room and she has to eat something to grow. Is that again metaphor for you need to consume this reality, if you will, in order to grow beyond your crude understanding of things.
Mm-hmm.
Or that it takes adjustment of perspective to
Yeah,
engage Wonderland either on the bigger or the littler level.
And I don't know how much of Through the Looking Glass is in the movie or whatever, but I mean, I feel like that's a different world. Is that correct, Santosh? Is the Looking Glass world a different world? Because it is, everything's kind of in reverse, right?
Yes and no, because gosh, that's got all the chess pieces and all of that analogy going on.
My experience with that is the Mickey Mouse cartoon where he goes through the Looking Glass.
Same here. And he has the dance fight scene with the glove. So yeah. It also makes me think if you look at the story, what metaphorical representation is the Jabberwocky? Is that man?
Is that man or is that Darrow?
Maybe the Jabberwocky is the combination of all humans.
I mean, he does go snicker snack.
That's what I was about to say. Snickety snack.
I mean, people.
I heard once a great theory on what he was actually writing when he was writing about that, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I had to memorize that whole poem when I was in 5th grade. We all did. It was cool. I was like, what a cool thing for us to have to memorize. Maybe that's why I'm okay with gibberish.
Right. Well, and then speaking of Bandersnatch, did you watch that Choose Your Own Adventure on Netflix that they put out like a couple of years ago?
Yes, really good. The Black Mirror one.
So their meditation stuff, and sorry, unpaid. I was like, they're not paying us to say this. The meditation series on Netflix has an interactive bit with it now, and I enjoyed that. Tried it out last night, where it sort of personalizes the experience. You just, as you scroll through it, I'm like, yay. I love that meditation is mainstream now,
Yeah. Yes, I do too.
Well, and I've even I've heard some, and I'll just say Christian because I don't know specifically what denomination, but I've heard some Christian people, even on like TikTok and Twitter and other places, talking about how you can grow in your faith, and one of the things they recommend is meditation. So it's one of those things where it's not really so much I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Merton pushed that a long time ago for Christians to use meditation within Christianity for sure, but it never. I think it was popular for a while, especially in the 70s, 60s, 70s, that Jesus freak movement, and I think meditation tying in with that was a big thing, but then it kind of went away. But even that's starting to come back. So
Well, and I think a lot of people, this was true when we were talking with our friend the theologian about that he should meditate. Is a lot of people think that it's a replacement for prayer in that space, and so that's where I think it gets a lot of bad rap. Is that people
it
think,
does because you're supposed to be humble, and they consider it prayer to yourself. And I'm like, that's not what it is, but okay.
So I'll definitely have to read Alice in Wonderland now with the lens of Hollow Earth and see.
Yeah, that's as soon as I read The Rabbit Hole, dude, I was like, that's how it's all being read right now, and my mind is just being blown. So
since I'm all pop culture, I also felt the need to start the Matrix trilogy over again. When you're just like, I need to.
Not a bad idea. I just saw a license plate that said Neo the One today. So very synchronicitous.
I mean, isn't that redundant? Neo the One. I mean,
no, Neo's.
People still say ATM machine.
They do say ATM machine like it ain't nobody's business.
I mean, if we're going to talk about redundancies.
My dad said that one time because he's like, everybody just call. I'm not anybody's dad or brother or whatever. I'm just the giant ATM machine. And I said, yeah, you have to be giant if there's two machines. And he's like, what?
So, can we move on to the
away
Yeah, I
from
told
our
you mine was-
two-machine conversation?
Mine
I don't
was
know.
just an appetizer,
Yeah.
I told you. So.
can we
That's a
move on
good one.
to our heaping bowl of stew at this point?
Yeah, let's move on to the stew.
I'm loving all of this. Both of you keep being as you are.
To the stew.
So one of the things that I floated with you all a couple weeks back after we had recorded the last Astral Stew, I wanted to circle back around with is talking about like magic, not so there's stage magic and then there's ritual magic but like one of the things that I really struggle with is some of the magic that I even hate to use the word tricks, but some of the magic that like David Blaine does, I'm just blown away. Like, how can that be an illusion? Like, I watched this video of him with Harrison Ford where there's a freaking car.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how is that an illusion?
I will say though, that's a classic illusion. I don't know how it's done because that asshole hasn't ruined it for everybody yet. The guy that ruins magic tricks, which my dad hates him and I do too. But yeah, I mean those are illusions. That's the difference. If I could just sum it up in 2 seconds, that's the difference. There's spell work and illusion.
But is that an illusion? Is that an illusion?
Yeah. Well. If what he's doing is stage magic, then yes, it's an illusion. If not, then what he's doing is energy manipulation. In my opinion.
Well, what I'm saying is can't there be real? And the word "real" is throwing me off here, but
real magic in the magician community.
Yeah, can what he's doing still be real magic? Although it's staged.
If he's using real magic, then yes.
Isn't the science of today the magic of yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the magic of today is the science of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So it all, yes. I mean, you're asking an open-ended question and you're going to get an open-ended answer. That yes, anything's possible. Yes, absolutely. He could be doing that. I mean, that's why people for like a long time didn't trust witches, didn't trust mages, didn't trust wizard, anything in that regards, because much like you couldn't trust an actor either, like it was kind of that same idea, was that magicians are able to manipulate and love potion. I mean, all these things, kind of nefarious things, so they couldn't be trusted, right?
So,
well, and also the patriarchy fucking with things along the way to skew things, like the women brewers, evil witches.
Yeah,
and I've heard people talk about how the Salem witch trials and a lot of that stuff back in the day was not so much about witchcraft, but more so about women's rights.
Oh, especially in Salem, 100%. They may. I mean, there may have been a couple traditional witches or two that carried over some of that tradition with them. It's possible. I don't ever want to say it's not possible, but more than likely, the type of community that they were in, they were all goody little Puritans, and the men or other women didn't like women doing things, or even the random guy. It's very rare for a guy, especially in Salem, but it was mostly like, here's a guy that raped a fucking woman and she was going to tell everybody. He then said she was a witch, right? So. But
well,
that's
also,
now England and Europe, that's a different story. Salem, I'm not 100% on.
Well, they were reading.
It's always a political,
learning math and fiscal things. I mean, just.
But yes, I mean, whether it was about the patriarchy or not during the burning times, it was also about squelching cultural tradition, because the church was still trying to very much dominate. And they did things, of course, like reappropriating pagan gods and turning them into saints. Saint Bridget is always the first one that pops into my head. She was a goddess before that, as a way to trick them into going to their church by saying, "Oh no, look, it's the same people," and that's essentially where saints came from. And
people wouldn't quit worshiping in the old ways, so a lot of them were done like holidays crafted to create social order.
Right. I mean, look at how many Christian holidays are still very rooted in pagan traditions, like Christmas, Easter, things like that. Like those are all things that are filled mostly with pagan traditions. I mean, when I say Easter, most of the people are thinking the Easter Bunny, not Jesus on a cross.
Also, this is a hemisphere concept as well, because the terminology you're using is more of that northern hemisphere kind of thing, right?
Very
because
much so.
We have all of the holidays to take us through the dark season, where I didn't find many of those holidays in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah, because their seasons are flipped. So I always wondered about that in some of the Anglo areas, like Australia and stuff, how they
kind of go back to the magic for a minute.
We never left it.
We never left it. So, I think there's some different spellings of the word magic to help people. Maybe to help people understand.
Not really.
No?
You can thank Aleister Crowley. He wanted something different. Crowley, sorry. You can thank Aleister Crowley. He added the K on the end of magic to make it look different. I mean,
to make it bougie.
To make it bougie. Yes, 100%. And that is the only history of the K there at the end of the word magic. A lot of us have chose to use it over the years. A lot of Wiccans use it and things now, but then there's a lot that don't. Because also stage magic too. It feels weird to write, "Hey, let's do some magic work tonight," and it looks like magic, like a stage magician. And so I do know personally as a Wiccan that I like having the K at the end because it helps me differentiate in my mind, makes me put more importance on it.
So do you just replace the C with the K, or do you add a K after the C?
CK.
Okay. Like Calvin Klein. Gotcha.
Yeah. Now there is like some of the Old English, it's spelled Magik. Some of the root in Old English, but Crowley added the K to make it, because he was always trying to do it. I'm surprised he didn't make it the Great B6666, like
just written about in L295.
Just because, but that was completely Crowley that created that.
So,
but I like I said, I like it as it helps me differentiate between the two, but it's not necessary.
So, I wanted to understand, and we've talked about it a little bit, and I have a very rudimentary understanding of ritual magic. So, in the case of stage magic, someone does, or again, I need to say the word. In some cases, it's a trick. In other cases, I'm not sure. But we'll say trick for the purposes of discussion.
Trick or illusion.
An illusion. And there are instantaneous results, right? They say, I'm going to go do this, and then they do it, and then they have their reveal, and then you have the results. But in ritual magic, that's not the case, right? I mean, there's not the
prestige does not come on cue.
No. In fact, most ritual magic, which really adding ritual implies that it can only be done in ritual. Again, another Crowley thing. But just basically spell work is the way I look at it. Spell work is not something quick. It is shit. Sometimes, God, I'm still waiting on spells to work that I did 10 years ago. Because the universe will do what it wants in its own time.
True,
I mean, unless somehow you are so connected to the universe that you can speak its language and know exactly how to say the words precisely that the universe can't take it the wrong way.
Well, it's interesting that you say that the universe will do it in their own time, because that sounds a lot like prayer and God answering prayer. So people always say God answers prayers on His time, right? And it's very similar in that aspect.
Divine timing is a concept in both camps.
Yep. And I mean, it's all, to me, God is just energy. He is just the universe. I say the universe, but I just mean all of us are made up of energy. We're all interconnected to it. And, it's just that. Yeah. I mean,
I use the word.
It's all about intent.
Yeah, I use the word as merely a placeholder for a half an hour to an hour and a half worth of conversation. Whenever I say the word God, like, probably don't mean your God.
But you're probably saying God, little g. No?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the Christians and the Jews don't own capital G.
Yeah.
O-D.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we got into an argument with theologian the other day because he was talking about how you can't use the Lord's name in vain, because he said that the kids aren't allowed to say, "Oh my God." And I thought that was asinine. And I thought, how is that taking the Lord's name as vain, especially when his name's Yahweh or Jehovah?
Well, exactly. The tetragrammaton, and which is, you're not supposed to know how to say it. That's what those letters represent. How can you take something in vain when it's unknown and unpronounceable?
Well, and then I said, theologian, have you ever actually looked up the definition of the word vain and what it means? And he said no. And so I sent him the definition, and he's like, well, I'm going to have to think on that, and never got back to me. Because it's not that. That's not what it means. It basically means to say you are God, that you are like God. So saying God damn it isn't taking the Lord's name in vain. It's saying, hey, God, will you damn this thing? Right? That's not taking the Lord's name in vain. If I were to say, I am Jehovah, right, or I am Tova, just kidding. Saying, I guess, like that and pretending to be God or thinking you're God, yes, then you're kind of getting
closer to my definition, speaking on behalf of God.
So I'm going to throw this around here. So if God is energy and we are energy, are we
God?
not?
Yes, we are. I am you, you are me, we are God.
Yep. I mean, you've always heard that even the Christians will say God is in everything, even in that stop sign. So if God is also that stop sign, then aren't we then also God? Our body is a temple. If our body is a temple, that means it's holy.
So if I say I am stop sign, am I taking God's name?
According to the theologian.
No, not if you say I am stop sign, but if you said stop sign wants you to stop masturbating, then yes, I think you're taking God's name in vain.
Also,
that needs to be on a t-shirt.
Stop sign wants you to stop
masturbating with a big stop sign on it. Put
that on a since we're talking about it, I did bring it up.
Try that with Dare.
The definitions of vain are having or showing an excessively high opinion of one's appearance or worth. Number 2 is producing no result, useless. And the other one is having no meaning or likelihood of fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And so none of those are, hey, don't say this word in this way.
Yeah.
Don't say this word in this language.
I mean, if anything, the first one is more in line with like what you said, right? You're basically giving yourself a higher worth, although one could argue you're not. But
but that threatens the status quo, and of course the church would want to control that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it goes on. Having excessive pride. Now I'm looking in the Merriam-Webster, marked by futility or ineffectualness, having no real value. Also, foolish. And it didn't take on the irreverent or blasphemous manner until like during the King James period.
Mm. He totally broke the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be with my boyfriend. No one can. That's straight up at the story.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of timeline stuff, have you all seen, and I know you both are on TikTok quite a bit, there's some guy on TikTok claiming to be a time traveler from like 2582, and he's posted all these prophecy things that are supposed to come true like in the next couple of years.
The best is that he's always putting things that he's already prophesied, but there's no videos of him prophesying them. So I called it. This was pre-TikTok. but I called this one.
Well, and he put something out there like May something of this year. There was supposed to be this humongous event that was going to change humanity forever. I went back and looked at the actual day that he said, and nothing really happened. Like nothing really happened on that
Well,
day.
here's my question: if you were to develop a time travel technique right now, and you were able to go back to 1985 or whatever, pick a year, would you let people know? And say you got stuck there, because usually these guys are stuck here. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you let them know? Would you say, hey, I'm a time traveler. So it's 1985. So maybe you're on some listserv or some chainmail campaign. I don't know how it would have been
time
done.
travel paradoxes, though. Do we have enough time to get into this topic?
But I mean, that's the thing that
Well,
always
so, I
weirds
mean-
me out about the time travelers that let everyone know that they're time travelers, right? Because that's already, I feel like that's already
So-
against the rules.
I feel well, and I'm going to say so. Like right off the bat, the first thing that comes to my head, and this is something we talked about quite a bit, is this guy less? There's a possibility for this guy less because he's making money off TikTok and YouTube followers.
No,
Less for what? What do you?
it's
Like,
what are we
less
what
quantifying?
Josh is talking about, like the fact that people get haunted and they get the right, they sell the rights to a movie. People say they're not credible anymore because they were just doing it for money.
So, like, if you take a time traveler who goes back to 1985 and he posts on some message boards or whatever, or takes an ad out in the newspaper or whatever, that's maybe a little different because if 15 people read his message board, he doesn't
I mean,
earn
the same.
anything.
Well, he
but
could
it's
say
that can be-
send me $5 a month for my club. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, right.
But it's also that the time travel, like you have to pick which of the theories, like accompanying theories, come with it, because if you come, there's the theory that you are then absorbed by the timeline. So in effect, you being there was always supposed to happen. So anything you do was what needed to happen, and you needed to be the one thinking you were making these choices at that time for it to play out, and the timeline heals itself. Also, then there's the fractal theories of it breaking off into parallel ones based off of minimal choice and quantum.
Yeah, Loki.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Loki,
yeah.
John Teeter.
Ooh, I've got my theories.
So, well, I was going to say, so Teeter's another one that I'll bring up briefly because Teeter talks about how when they go back in time, they can only go back to timelines that are close in relationship, not relationship,
Similarity.
Similarity. Thank you. They're close in similarity to his own timeline. But even then, they can only stay in that timeline for so long before it starts to diverge from his timeline. And then if he stays there too long, he can't get back to his timeline. So, and he even talks about how he has to go back to like the 60s before he can then go back to his spot in his timeline because those lines were closer together for those two timelines. So I mean,
that's what I meant by the fractal tree, where you imagine all these glowing filaments and hopping from one to the other represents you hopping timelines and realities.
Right.
Well, here's an interesting concept. So I just watched this old 1961 sci-fi movie called Travel Beyond the Time Barrier, or Travel to the Time. I can't remember what it is, but essentially they'd already broken the sound barrier, and of course they wanted to break the light speed barrier, but they couldn't do that. So someone had discovered the speed of time, and he was able to break the time barrier. And I was like, because sound we know has a speed, light has a speed, does time.
Well,
now I know a lot of people will say light is the speed of time.
So it's really interesting that you mentioned that because I was watching a video from Dr. Stephen Greer the other day, and he was talking about how the speed of light is not the fastest thing, the speed of thought is, and that a lot of these beings and crafts and stuff don't fly from one place to another. It's a very linear way of thinking about it. They just think themselves to where they want to be.
Sure. Yeah. Just like he said, that's a lot of yogic concept. There's some astral concept there. But yeah, I agree. I've never thought light was the most fastest thing. There's always a bigger fish.
There was an article maybe a week or two ago where science has actually proven in a lab that things can go faster than the speed of light. They've actually got some
Quantum entanglement itself is faster than the speed of light, isn't it?
I believe so. So yeah.
But yeah, so is there a speed of time? That's the question.
I mean, there's a speed force, and Flash goes back in time.
Time dilates and gravity affects it.
Yeah, he did go from, so it was 1961, but I think the film was set in 74, and once he broke the time barrier in outer space, by the way, once he did that, he ended up in 2024.
I mean, when you think about it, outer space is the perfect place to break the time barrier, because then you're not restricted by your surroundings. If you break the time barrier physically on Earth, then wherever you are in time could be different. Like you could materialize inside of a rock wall. But if you do it in space, likely not much has changed.
Well,
right?
This is one of Stefan's nuggets.
bring it up.
I know the one you're going to do. It's going to be the Earth moves throughout the cosmos, right? I'll give it back to you, but I was going to give you props. Like
yes,
that was one
I was going to bring it up too, because that's one of my biggest fears of time travel is that we are physically on an Earth that turns and also moves, and so.
And moves through the galaxy.
And moves through the galaxy. So I feel like you have to, when you time travel, you have to do it in such a way that it has to, like, you can only time travel in a way it's going to land in the exact same spot.
You're in the reality where it takes supercomputing to account for all of the those variables.
Because if I were right now to time travel a day into the future. Right.
But you do have that power. You'll be there tomorrow.
Shut up. Instantaneously, and I'm there. Well, the Earth will have moved a day forward. Will I just be sitting in outer space? Will I move with the Earth if I time travel?
No, you'll be floating with all the other dead bodies of time travelers who didn't figure it out.
Except for Superman, who just spins around the Earth and puts it all back.
Or you could go out in your bird of prey, warp around the sun, and go back and get some whales.
Or go to the Mafia, Chicago, go to the Old West.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do when you go around the sun.
Yep. So now that we've melted our brains and probably melted our viewers' brains, I think it's a pretty good time to lay my head down, let my brain drip out of my ears so I can push it back in.
Well, you just have to wear your hat backwards; it'll just spill.
Yeah, well, I'll just like this. Then.
What was that reaction to his hat against his head?
It's a nice hat, and it's going to be all goopy now.
Why's it got to be goop?
Why does it have to? Now my brain's melting.
All right. Well, thank everybody for tuning in.
I can hear the ocean.
This has been. Your brain, if it drips out, it's astral stew. No, maybe
room temperature. Is it a ceviche where it doesn't have to be heated up?
Yeah. Ugh.
I always imagined our stew to be thick and dense and hot. Warm.
What's that stuff? It's like it looks like salsa, but you serve it at room temperature. Is that what you're talking about?
Guacamole.
Gazpacho, something.
Salsa.
Gazpacho?
No, it's not salsa.
Gazpacho.
What's it called? Wait a minute. Chris is telling me. Gazpacho.
Yes.
Who is this Gus? And his spacho.
Who is this Gus?
I don't know. Probably the same thing Pocahontas is. I don't know what a harness is, but I got to poke it.
You have to. You might get in trouble.
All right. Now, on that note, we're done.
Yay.
Peace.
Well, hopefully, next month we'll be talking about disclosure. That's my hope. So
I hope so too. I will put out good energy towards that.
Yes.
Next
month we'll be talking about how disclosure came and went.
And left us all
Nothing
feeling a little
else.
dirty.
Yeah, because
So,
it's supposed
yeah.
to drop here in about 5 or 6 days from when we recorded this. So
I mean,
25th,
technically
right?
it was 6 months from the day the bill was signed, which was like December 27th. So we have until June 27th for them to just put it out there. But the government's never on time.
well,
So-
and the 27th is a Sunday, so I think they've said 25th is the date. So.
Yeah. I saw
Who
26,
said?
I thought.
Who said?
Them.
And I saw them say it too.
The
'Cause
people,
I said
the
25.
people who want to see the report, but the government hasn't said, yeah, we'll have it by the 25th.
Well, they already have the classified version, right? Like we get the non-classified version in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yay.
And unless the Black Vault gets a hold of it sooner.
Which would be awesome.
Still all the thunder of their big reveal.
Well, New York Times already tried to do it.
Did they?
So,
Yeah, they put out that article saying there ain't crap in there.
Yeah,
But yeah.
saying that they've got a source in there that says that there's nothing, that there's no aliens, that it's just crafts of that they don't know what they are. And I'm like, well, yeah. So nothing's changed.
Yeah. Wait a minute. We went away for 6 months and we talked about a report where we're going to look at all the unidentified things. We're going to come back and tell Congress they're still unidentified.
Right. That's what all this guffaw is about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have high hopes, like of that that there will be some cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what comes out. I still think it's going to be like basically it is the opening of the door for the government to officially say, hey, we got these cool craft that are now a part of Space Force, and we're going to go do all this stuff that we've already been secretly doing since the 50s.
Yeah, I think Space Force is the linchpin. Is that now that we're militarizing outer space, the money will flow that way.
Yeah, didn't somebody
because
say that the military's already patented Tic Tac?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
spaceships.
There's patents for the triangle craft too that like people came across. You can go to if you ever really want to get lost in a rabbit hole, loop this all back around to Alice in Wonderland. Go to Google patents and just look stuff up. There is just the craziest things that the government has patented over the years. Like there's a patent out there for faster than light drives. There's a patent out there for a time travel machine. There's just all kinds of stuff that the government has patented over the years. So, but anyways,
until next time.
Tune in next time. Same Fear State channel.